Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Black Man Speak. I'm your co-host, VJR Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, Tommy D. Duncan III, otherwise known as TD3. It is Wednesday night, April the 22nd, 2026. And if it's Wednesday night,
It's Black Man Speak. So let's give thanks to Count Basie for providing our theme music, for Forest Films in our own studio, for subsidizing our virtual studio here. That makes it available for us to bring you the show every Wednesday night. And if you haven't already, hit that notification bell, hit the like button, or the like button and the notification button, so you'll be notified when new shows are uploaded, which is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. once the show ends on YouTube. But we're also on Twitch. There are two other platforms that we're on also, Tom. I can't remember, so I have to do a better job at getting all the platforms that we're on. But YouTube is not, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and there's one more. I think we're on X, or I'm not sure if we're on X anymore. But yeah, we can catch us in multiple places, but please do. And with that being said, Tom, let's do what we do best, which is bring information about what's going on in the world to social media.
all right, folks, let's go ahead and get started. We have a jam-packed show for you today with a lot of headline news. We're going to talk about something that some of you who may keep up with sports or the IRS may have seen recently. You know, the IRS is going after Floyd money, Mayweather again, trying to take some of that money back. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Of course, the ongoing saga in the Middle East with the Iran conflict. Of course, there's a ceasefire that's been extended. We'll talk a little bit about where that is and where that means. A saga in technology industry is now coming to a close, and then one new door opening as Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, is now stepping down, and a new generation of CEO is coming in. We'll talk about what that looks like, and of course, we're going to talk about the NBA playoffs. We're in the first round, and we've got to talk about what those matchups look like and who our picks are in this first round, Jimmy. May be able to get to something else, but we're at least guaranteed to get those. So let's go ahead and get started. But before we get started, we do have a couple of condolences that we're going to have to make sure that we share in the world, just in case you haven't heard. Some of these, at least maybe one or so of these folks you probably are familiar with, especially if you watch TV. The other one, maybe not. So let's take a moment of silence to offer our condolences to the following who are now ancestors.
Okay.
Yeah, Jimmy, I just found out, of course, about the good congressman who had recently passed, and he's actually a fraternity brother of ours. He was actually out of the state of Georgia. Started out with the state of Georgia, and eventually went to U.S. congressman and representative. He just passed today in his early
Yes.
80s. And then also, of course, we had an actor and an actress. Some of you who may have been around for a while, maybe our generation or older, may have seen Judy Pace, one of the beauties and starlets from back in the day, who played in Peyton Place, I Spy, and a bunch of other roles. Really not leading roles, but definitely good supporting roles. And she was definitely a beauty back in her day. She died, of course, in her early 80s. And then Riff Hutton also kind of played some supporting roles, probably most famous for playing for his roles in Doogie Howser, for those of you who watched that show.
Well, our frat brother Tom was also the first chairman of a black congressman who chaired a committee. So I think he chaired the agriculture committee for a while. So another distinction. But yeah, I just heard news that he had passed away today.
Absolutely. So we definitely want to offer our condolences and our prayers to the families, loved ones, people who they have impacted in a positive way over the years, because these are all folks who have, lived to be a healthy age, considering today's life expectancy in particular. So, of course, we have to make sure that we take the time to honor our ancestors. And, of course, the world is a little bit better, Jimmy, because of these people.
Yes, that is true.
All right, Jimmy. Well, let's go ahead and get to our stories. We've got a lot to go through today, but I think we may have enough time. You know, uh, probably one of the greatest, most iconic, prolific fighters of all time, Floyd Mayweather, probably has pursed over $1 billion. But you know what? He is in the news again because of, we won't call it tax evasion, but let's just say he didn't pay his taxes, and the IRS has filed a lien against Floyd Money Mayweather for not paying his taxes. After probably another fight a couple of years ago, Jimmy, he's, I think, tagged with about $7.3 million that they have tagged him on, where they can literally go in and freeze your assets, including real estate, bank accounts, and things of that nature, in the tune of $7.3 million.
Tom, you do not want those pit bulls behind you. Trust me. I've had run-ins with the IRS, and they can lock you down, lock your bank accounts, seize your property. There's no limit to what they can do when they want to collect money from you. So, and then the penalties and interest add up. Sometimes the penalties and interest is worse than the original tax liability. So, do not get behind with those folks. Don't play with them. If you don't know what you're doing, hire a tax attorney. But by all means, for him, Tom, if I was someone of that in that position, it'd be worth $7 million for me to keep my names out of the headline. I don't see how his publicist, his manager, and he himself allowed this to go on and get to. Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, hey, hey! Stop it! My dog's a barker, barks at everything. Sorry about that, but I don't see how he let this get to this point. Um, write, write the damn check and be done with it. Is my advice to him.
Well, Jimmy, the interesting thing is this isn't the first time that he's gotten into a little trouble with the IRS. He had a lien against him in 2015 after the Pacquiao fight. And then in 2010, I mean, that was 22 million after the Pacquiao fight. You know, he made some money in that Pacquiao fight. 2010, a little bit over 7 million as well. And so it looks like there's this recurring theme of him having these big windfalls of money, whether it's a fight or otherwise, and then trying to push back on the taxes or get out of the taxes, which just ain't gonna happen. And then he gets back in the news again.
Yeah, Tom, and people, young kids look up to him. I mean, I'm an okay fan. Not a, I'm not saying I'm a big fan. I wouldn't even qualify as a fan. If he's on and I can watch the fight, okay, fine. He's entertainment, but I don't really follow him as a fan like that. But there are a lot of people who do, a lot of young people who do, and like I said, you're making headline news for the wrong reasons. I mean, you should be doing what you can to be in the news for doing something positive. Now, you want to show off your wealth and the cars and the houses. Okay, fine. It's your wealth. It's your money. Do what you want with it. But certainly don't make the news. Don't be in the headlines for not paying your damn taxes, especially over $7 million when you've made $1 billion plus. That's just in person earnings, Tom, and there's no telling how much he's made in other outside endorsements and other money from other interests that he have. And I mean, this should be embarrassing to him, this whole organization, for this to happen.
Well, the one thing about Floyd is that, if nothing else, he is somewhat of a flashy guy. He's in the news a lot, and one of the things, I don't want to say it's completely a cultural thing, but some fighters, not all of them. I mean, we can talk about a lot of other fighters who have been in trouble with taxes. But he is a little bit on the flashy side, like staying in the news. And people who have big money, real money, the Warren Buffetts of the world, the Elon Musks of the world, the Ray Dalios, they don't really put a target on their back by being too flashy. But,
No, they
people
don't,
like,
Tom.
Floyd, Mike Tyson, some other folks, it's almost as if they have a chip on their shoulder by showing how much money they have, and even people who don't really have that kind of money. And when I talk about that, I talk about the entertainers. Entertainers, generally speaking, have this need to be adulated and for all of the attention to center around them. And sometimes that does not work in your favor because you're putting a bullseye on your back, either to
You
get
are.
mugged, to get robbed, for somebody to rob your house, for somebody to, God forbid, kidnap your children or a family member so they can get money out of you. And sometimes it's best just to stay quiet.
That is true, Tom. I agree with you 100%, man. But sometimes, man, people have the mentality, and far too many of our people, that it's better to look wealthy than to be wealthy.
I would agree. And the wealthiest
Although
people in the world,
Floyd is wealthy, so
very.
it's not just a look for him. He is wealthy, but you're right. He don't have to advertise and show his wealth. Sitting on $1 million like that of cash, like I said, I saw a video interview of him, maybe after the one of the big fights, Pacquiao fight, and he had two or three of the Bugatti cars in his house in Vegas, which is one of his houses. And Tom, I know at that time those cars were going for 3 million plus. You have three of them that you never even drove. You know, he was bragging that the car didn't have 1 mile on it. So why are you sitting with three cars that you're not even driving inside your house? Just showpieces.
Well, Jimmy, you are right. But, to his point, and I can't say I know that much about high end cars because I don't do high end cars. If they're appreciating in value, I can maybe understand where you're coming from because I figure if they get them, if he gets them at, I don't know, you said $3 million, and let's say in the next 5 or 10 years they go up to maybe $8 million. Okay, that's an asset to me. But
That's
showing them
true.
off, showing them off, I don't know if I'm going to do that because again, you're putting a bullseye for somebody to try to steal. Yeah. And so
For a tow truck to come back into your house, man, and pull one of them off. So yeah, that's true. So anyway, man, we wish him well, and hopefully he can avoid this type of publicity in the future. And I hope him, his publicist, his manager, and people around him who handle his affairs do a much better job in the future to keep him out of the news in this particular fashion. Like I said, I'm not a big fan, but it's an embarrassment to even me for him to be going through this.
yeah, and in a public way. Again, these are entertainers. They like attention. They like the cameras. As they would say, and then your buddy in the White House. Bad publicity is better than no publicity, and entertainers like publicity.
Yeah, that's true.
So the question is, what is the lesson, not for the billionaires out there, but maybe the to-be billionaires, the millionaires, or even the thousandaires that are coming up? What are the lessons to be learned here?
The lesson we learned, Tom, is that you have to manage your money well, especially when you have a chance to earn money, even if it's not, even if you're just a thousandaire. You know, you're not going to be able to earn money for the rest of your life. So when you have a chance to earn money, you can't squander it. You have to really save heavily, invest well, take some chances, some risk. In order to then hopefully position yourself where money can work for you, whether you don't have to work for money.
There we go. And I think that's the key. We know, of course, and talk about a lot of what we consider rich people, folks who make a lot of money. But in a lot of cases, these people who make a lot of money, they don't keep very much of it because of their lifestyle requirements. Whether it's the trinkets and the toys, whether it's all of the crew that they have to support, who's around them to make them look good and holler and scream their name, Jimmy. Eventually that money goes down the drain, and then what do you have to show for it? So one of the other things, Jimmy, that thinking about it that you have to consider, if you plan to make that much money, get a doggone good tax attorney. Think about your taxes, when you are doing this, regardless of how much money you're making, even if you are a thousandaire, understand how to keep as much money. The only way to keep your money is to think about the taxes before or while you're making it.
Right. Well, another thing, Tom, we talked about this earlier. You can have an accountant, but if you make that kind of money, you should also have an outside auditing firm, accounting firm to come in and check the books, because accountants have been known to skim money off the top, um, and it's best to have a accounting firm handling your affairs rather than an accountant handling your affairs, where it's just one person with no one looking over his or her shoulder. But also bringing an outside accounting firm to do an audit of all your books to tell you exactly where your money is going and how your money is being spent and whether you're making money or losing money. Because you may think that you're making money because all you know is what the accountant is telling you about what's coming in, and you steady spending money and money's going out. And like with the debit card, Tom, sometimes you don't if you don't pay attention, you can lose track of how many times you swipe that card and have inserted that card. Um, Versus when you have just money in your pocket and you have to reach into it and you know exactly how much money you have left after you make a purchase, and you're like, well, damn, that $100 went quick. But if it's a debit card, it could be two, $300, and you not even realize it that it's gone.
True that. True that. So again, there are a lot of things that you want to be in the news about. Being tagged by the IRS is not one of them. So it's just something to think about. Whether you're a billionaire, millionaire, or a thousandaire, either way, it ain't cute.
Well, who is it? The rapper Snoop Dogg said he keeps his mind on the money and his money on his mind, or something to
Absolutely.
that effect.
There we go. All right, let's go ahead and go to our next story. And this is actually, we, of course, have been covering the conflict in the Middle East between the U.S., Israel, and Iran. And of course, recently there was a ceasefire. I guess it's been maybe close to a couple of weeks, give or take, on the ceasefire in Iran. Of course, we're about a couple of months into the conflict right now, Jimmy. So let's kind of talk a little bit about the updates and what it may mean, these ceasefires, as we can tell, considering the one that we were probably looking at late last year, early this year between Israel and Palestine are very fragile and don't usually last very long.
No, they don't, Tom. And this is what's wrong with when you have these battles like these and these conflicts. At some point, somebody has to win. When I say win, you have to really remove the the opposition's ability to wage war against you. Because if you don't, these things just continue and go on. And of course, we know about the destruction, the death, and everything else that goes along with these conflicts. If you're going to enter into it as a nation, you got to enter into it to win. You can't just enter into it to neutralize your opponents and then go home and leaving your opponents intact. So if you're going to go to fight someone, you have to fight to totally win and to totally annihilate them to a point that they cannot wage war against you in the future. Because if they can, but this was the stake of World War I, when when the Germans and everyone else just went home, just decided to stop fighting, but everyone still had the capacity to wage war, and it wasn't good 30 years later the Germans were right back at it, picking up where they left off in World War II. So if you're not going to totally annihilate your enemy, then you're going to basically be going with the Israelis and the Palestinians, and the Lebanese are going through, and the Syrians are going through now, constant fighting over and over. So it's not until someone actually wins and take away the ability to wage war that you can have peace. Until then, all you're going to have is conflict.
Well, I mean, the rub on this one in particular with the U.S., Israel, and Iran is that if you look at annihilation, there's really only one annihilation here. And quite frankly, there have been conflicts between Israel and Middle Eastern countries, whether that be the Palestinians, whether that be Iran, Iraq, or otherwise. And, one thing is having a military conflict, but now you are evolving into more of an economic conflict as well when you consider what's happening in the Middle East. Because one thing that I think the U.S. probably did not consider in going into this, backing up, there was something that Colin Powell said a long time ago that I remembered is that what, before you go into war, you need to have your exit strategy very clear. And I don't know that that was really thought about in this case because I think the U.S. felt it was going to be basically a pushover like it was in Venezuela. And Iran said, well, no, we're not going to be pushovers. We're not quite like Venezuela. We can defend ourselves. And maybe we can't reach the United States, but we can reach some other assets that you do care about. And guess what? There are some other resources that we can make a little bit difficult, not just for you, but for some of your allies as well. So this is going to be an ongoing conflict. The other thing that you have to consider is that when you look at the conflicts that have been going on in the Middle East, we're thinking about things in terms of maybe 4 years, 8 years. Of course, the largest war, I think, Jimmy, was 21 years. I think the Afghanistan war, something of that nature, Jimmy. But when you consider that you are attacking countries that have been in conflicts, military and Cold War for hundreds of thousands of years, it's a different mindset.
Well, Tom, I would say that being a Marine, I've been to battalion school, war school, and I would say I would disagree with Colin Powell and those type generals that think that way. Um, I'm pretty much a World War II type of strategist, and that is when you defeat someone, you go to war with them to defeat them. See, they talk about these exit plans. There is no exit plan when you lose a war, so that's why you don't go to war. We didn't leave
Bingo.
Japan. We
Bingo.
didn't, but just hear me out. We haven't left Japan. We haven't left Germany. We haven't left Italy. We haven't left Western Europe. So the price you pay when you lose a war is that you're occupied until the occupier decides to leave, which may be never. The problem now with these spineless generals that we have now and the way we teach military conflict is people think that we can go in, be clean, have smart bombs that only kill the enemy, doesn't kill civilians, and somehow at the end of the conflict, when the white flag is waved, we're going to pack up and leave. The answer is we need to go back to World War II style thinking that if you go to war with the United States, the answer is when are we going to leave? Never. So that should have been the answer with Iraq when we went to war with them. We should have never left. But we did pack up and leave. We do have a base there, but for the most part, most of our assets are left there. We went to war with Afghanistan. When we were going to leave, the answer is never. We left 80 plus billion dollars of equipment there under Biden and that hastily withdrawal. And the answer is you don't go to war with the United States because if you do, you may run the risk that someone like a Jimmy Stewart is going to decide that we're never, ever going to leave. You will forever be occupied and we will forever be setting the rules, at least in the beginning, for how you run your country. So this is where the Iranians are right now. They can push back all they want. Um, but if Trump ever releases the full fury of the United States against that country, Tommy, to be worse than Venezuela. At least Venezuela has some autonomy. They only have to give up all half of their oil revenue. I can see a picture where the Iranians may have to give up 80% of theirs to keep the peace. And that only, and the other thing here, Tommy, like we were talking about earlier, I think while people underrate Trump and think he's stupid or dumb, and that's why he's able to basically beat them at every turn. And while the rest of the world is playing checkers, he's playing chess. So Iran is just another piece board, another piece on the board, another pawn that needs to be taken off. But the bigger picture is now the Iranians supply 90% of the oil to China, and guess what's being blocked now for oil to go into China? All that would come from Iran is being blocked now. It doesn't come out. So where is China having to buy oil from? The United States and for the Middle East. Countries that we have some control over. And now your energy supply, you can't buy it cheap from the Russians anymore or from Venezuela or from Iran and bypass sanctions. You now have to pay market price. So now it's costing China a lot more money than they want to pay for oil. And the oil that you are buying, a big chunk of it is in the control of the United States. So at some point, this is going to subdue the Chinese, keep the Russians at bay, keep the Chinese at bay. And when Trump leaves office in a couple of years, he basically going to be handing off all these problems to the next president. So generally, administrations inherit the problems from the previous administration.
True.
He's decided he's going to clean all this mess up in the last couple of years that he have, clean up the Middle East, clean up things with Iran, clean up things with Venezuela, take care of Cuba, put the Chinese in their place. The Russians, I would say, like to keep them in their place, but the Russians can't even take out Ukraine, a third bit army. So we know where the Russians are, and the Iranians have been using the top of the line Russian equipment for the air defense, radars and the surface air missiles, and we ran through their airspace like it was nothing, Tom. So I think that with over 12,000 air missions flown over their country, they've been able to shoot down one American plane out of 12,000 flights, which is which is close to statistically at zero. So we don't put much stock in the Russian equipment, and Russians know that now. We don't put any stock in the Chinese equipment because their equipment can't. Countries that use their equipment can't defend against U.S. technology. And so I think now our technology is on display as to what we can really do if we really wanted to take you out. Now we haven't used all of our military might out of political correctness, but we now have a president who doesn't really understand what political correctness is and what the rules of foreign diplomacy, which is everybody's supposed to get together and talk about problems and nothing gets solved, versus a person that says, you know what, I know how to solve this and I know how to deal with this, and either you're going to capitulate or I got a really big gun over here that I can use or pick up the phone and engage my military to deal with this. So at some point, when you're 800-pound gorilla in the room, you can't act like the 40-pound Burmese chimp. You have to act like the silverback 800-pound gorilla that you are, and that's who we are, Tom.
Well, I don't know. Some people might have a curious indifference with that, especially considering that, if you say you're going to do something, you do it. If you say that you have a ceasefire and you put a deadline on it, you either deal with that deadline or you pay the consequences, and of course it keeps getting extended. But going back to another train, the thing about it is, in the United States, by design, there's an economic and a political cost to all of this. And the reality of it is, when you have countries overseas that have leadership in place for 20, 40 some odd years, like an Iran, like a Russia, they have a little bit more of a long-term view on things, and then they push and pull on this. The United States, everything flips in every 4 to 6 years, depending on what office it is, Jimmy. And so the reality of it is, you have a very short time horizon when you're in the office of the president of the United States in order to get something done. And I guess time will tell how much Trump is able to get things done. But the reality of it is, the Chinese, you can squeeze them, but you know what? They have some ways of squeezing back. So we'll see how this thing goes, because Chinese has a lot of squeeze points too, as well, that could hurt. Maybe not those who are at the top of the food chain, but a lot of the people who run this, who are driving this economy, they can squeeze a lot of the other folks who are driving the economy. And if the economy starts getting hurt, then something's going to have to change. We'll see what happens, because at the end of the day, somebody's got to pay for all of this stuff. And it ain't really looking like the people who are wealthy who are getting hurt like that, but the taxpayers. And most of them don't look like the folks who are making the decisions.
Okay, Tom. So right now the price is being paid at the pump. You pay a little bit more for gasoline, and if we squeeze the Chinese, so what? We don't get the Walmart doesn't get to fill the store shelves with cheap Chinese goods, or maybe a Jimmy Stewart doesn't get a chance to go into business and sell tablets that I can get really cheap. Very good tablets from China, but okay, that's the price you pay.
Yeah,
Um,
they only gonna be, but you're only gonna be able to pay that for so long, Jimmy. Most of these, unfortunately, most of these folks are struggling and barely trying to survive, man, to keep a roof over their head.
Tom, we are going to survive. We'll be okay.
Oh, I'm not
Uh,
suggesting. I'm just suggesting we're not going to survive. But if you keep the pain on the little fries for a little bit too long, then your political structure starts beginning to change, because people can only take so much. Very few people are wealthy enough to not be impacted by this.
well, everybody's going to be impacted. We all got to pay a price when the country goes to war. So there's sacrifices that have to be made across the board, but some more than others. So some feel the
Absolutely.
pain more than others, which is true. So I mean, I consider myself and my family blessed. Our lifestyle hasn't been disrupted at all, even though we've had some ups and downs. We've been able to level out in our financial woes even during the war here. So. But Tom, with that being said, man, let's just hope they wrap this up. I know they extended the deadline just to give the Iranians a chance to figure out who's in charge, because you don't even know who you negotiate with now. All the leadership has been taken out,
Well,
and
that's what
you
happens.
think you're negotiating with Group A over here, but Group B says no, they're not the group, that we're the group. And then okay, you negotiate with Group B, and then Group C pops up.
Well,
So
Jimmy,
this is
those are
just
the
a chance.
unintended consequences of beating your chest and taking out the supreme leader. Then you got all these other people to deal with, and you don't know who you're dealing with.
And so we got to give them a little bit of time to figure out who we need to negotiate with. If y'all want to make a deal and surrender or come up with some kind of agreement, then we need to know who actually is in charge now. And we can't have all these splinter groups, everybody raising their hand like the Perry dogs out in West Texas, popping their heads above the ground, claiming that you're the one. So yeah, this is not
Well,
what's that
Jimmy,
game
when,
called?
when, when, when you get rid of the supreme leader, this is what happens.
Well, they got rid of the supreme leader and everybody up under him. So, and the Israelis keep killing whoever pops up and says they're now the leader. The Israelis keep taking them out. So, yeah, we don't know who's in charge now, who to negotiate with, but hopefully we get it figured out in the next couple of days and they come to some kind of agreement. So, 'cause I think everybody's just ready for the war to be over with and for us to move on. Because we've been in some very long, contracted wars in Iraq, and Afghanistan. So,
My no time soon.
no time soon. Okay, I'm going to predict Tom next 4 weeks that you have an agreement in writing surrender agreement in writing,
A
which
surrender
arrangement
agreement.
claim a surrender agreement, Tom. Uh,
Wow.
the Iranians are gonna have to pay for the war. We spent maybe $40 billion in ammo so far on this war. Y'all gonna give us $40 billion in oil to pay for it. It won't be like the Iraqi war, where we got nothing for that war. We're gonna get money out of this one. We're gonna make a
Well,
profit
Jimmy, we'll
off of
see. I
this
mean,
one.
that's just like the Mexicans were supposed to pay for that big, beautiful gate. Still waiting on it.
Well, that is true. So anyway, what's our next story, T?
Before we get to our next story, let's acknowledge a couple of folks that we have on the chat
Who do
line.
we
We got to
have?
show some love and appreciation for the folks who are
Yes,
joining
we
us.
do.
We've got cousin Audrey K on the line. I want to thank her for joining us. Good evening to you, and thank you for joining us. We got Miss Carol on the line. I want to thank her
Yay!
for us as well. We got Miss Tanya on the line, and want to thank her for joining us as well and showing some love. We got to show them some love. So,
Hey Tom, what's wrong with this pattern here? Why are our faithful all women?
well, maybe Jimmy, they love us. I don't know.
Oh man, okay. Well, you would think that
Or
there'd be
maybe,
a few fell.
maybe men just don't get on chat lines. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Oh, we love all of the women who follow us. Thank you guys. Thank you, ladies, so much.
There you go.
Kisses dog.
Mwah.
Yes.
All
Big
right.
hugs.
All right. Let's go. Let's kind of steer to something a little bit less divisive and go to some
Okay.
business news. One of the most iconic brands in the world today, Apple. Their CEO, Tim Cooks, has decided to step down and roll over to the chair position, and now they're going to have a new man in charge. John Turner's Jimmy, Tim Cooks. Anybody who knows Apple, the face, of course, was Steve Jobs, who was the visionary innovator of that country. I mean, of that company, and of course, built the brand. And of course, over the last 15 years, Tim Cooks has taken over the reins after Steve Jobs resigned, and shortly thereafter passed. Unfortunately, I believe it was stomach cancer, if I
Yeah,
recall.
cancer. Yes.
Exactly. But Tim Cooks has really been leading the company. It went from a visionary guy to more of an operations guy, which Tim Cooks was more of a COO type. And it's been an interesting run. During his reign, it went from a $300 billion company to a couple of $1 trillion company right now, Jimmy. And
I was surprised about that, Tom. I remember not too long ago when Apple became the first company to hit $1 trillion in market cap. Um, and then I checked on it today, and they're worth over $4 trillion. I'm like, wow, that didn't take too long to go from a trillion to 4 trillion. So they're doing extremely well. They're now pretty much mainstream as an alternative to Microsoft and IBM. So um, they do well with product placement. So it used to be a fringe technology. It's not a fringe technology anymore. It's pretty mainstream. Um, I own one of their well, I own two of their tablets. I got the iPad one and the iPad two, which I do like my iPad two very well. I know I donated the iPad one to the VA, but I do like my iPad two. It's a very good tablet. But uh, Tom, they are very proud of their technology. I'm just gonna leave it
yeah,
at that.
yeah. Anybody, anybody
Well,
who has an Apple product knows they are very proud.
very proud, Tom. Don't go in there. Your pockets are a little tight. You gonna get your feelings hurt. So
But it went from a product-based company. I mean, I remember being in college and being, going into the computer lab and being on the that big blocky-looking Apple computer and had I guess what made it very innovative at that point in time. We're talking
well,
40
they had a
years.
GUI. They had a GUI before anyone else.
Exactly, and you were able to
Yes.
do graphics and do a lot of cool stuff that you just couldn't do on the traditional IBM machines. And of course, it grew up as a product company, the Apple Mac. And then, of course, now you've got the MacBook Pro, you've got the Apple Watch, you've got, of course, what do they call it? The one that had the music in it, the little device that has the
Uh,
music in it.
yes. The MP3 players.
Then you got the
Um,
MP3 player. So,
yes.
but now with Tim Cooks over the last 15 years, he has taken it to more of a services organization or a services-driven company. Apple Music, iCloud, Apple TV, and of course, it is still a device company, but what he did is he diversified the revenue mix, and I believe that the services is now about a quarter of the revenue for the company right now. But I'm still learning a little bit about the new CEO, John Turnus. It looks like he comes from the hardware side of the business, so it'll be interesting as to where he turns the company, Jimmy, because, ultimately, when we look at the hardware, when we look at the space, hardware is kind of a commodity, and services and software is where the profit is. And I think that was what his focus was, is generating more profit by offering new lines of services as opposed to being so product and physically hardware focused.
Well, the other big thing he did, Tom, was his licensing for the operating system became a lot easier. Microsoft's licensing can be very restrictive at times, um, and but when Apple kind of opened theirs up, because that used to be the knock against them. There just wasn't very much software out there for it. Now there's tons of software, and a lot of people who develop for Microsoft also develop for Apple, and now starting to develop for Linux also. So software is not really the issue anymore. But the one thing that Apple did right, Tom, better than everyone else, is they build reliability and quality into their product. You don't have the software crashes, the blue screens, the lockups. You can't even upgrade a Microsoft machine without having to reboot. You get memory leaks. So if you don't reboot a Microsoft machine every 30 days, you get all kind of memory leaks and have problems. And then the updates are atrocious. You've heard my stories. I have a couple of Microsoft laptops, and one of them, Tom, every time the damn thing updates, about every third time it updates, I have to reinstall everything because it gets locked up. It can't undo what it did, and then it can't go forward, it can't go back, and I end up having to wipe everything out and just start over, which is a pain in the butt. But I've yet to hear one person who own a MacBook have that same story. Their software, their operating system, everything just seems to work. And at least on my iPad, that's another reason I like it so much. When I install software on it and do things on it, it just seems to work. Never locks up on me. I don't have a problem. And when it pushes updates, it's always at 3 in the morning when I'm asleep, as opposed to my Microsoft stuff is sometime midday telling me that it got to do a update, a push or a change out to me. Like, wait a minute, I told you to do it at 3 in the morning. Why are you bugging me in the middle of the day to do this? And then I always get very nervous whenever my machine updates because it may not survive the update.
I would agree, Jimmy. And the one thing that when you look at Apple as a brand, and we're talking about its laptops, and iPads, and things of that nature, to your point, they're very sturdy. The engineering that is invested into their devices are par excellence. I mean, I don't think that there is any other brand that can compare to Apple in
No.
terms of the engineering and the capabilities that they put into their products. Where you may have to, replace a Microsoft, driven device every, 3 or 4 some odd years, Jimmy. It is not uncommon to have a Mac product for 10 plus years, even more than that sometimes. Now they may not, you may only be able to upgrade the software depending on the age of the hardware, but if you take care of it, it's just like a Toyota, it will take care of you.
Yeah, I remember years ago, many years ago, my brother and his wife decided to get a new computer because theirs crashed, and they were getting my advice, and I told them to go out and buy a MacBook. And that's what they did, and they haven't looked back. I mean, it was a little bit of a learning curve; it was different, uh, but now I don't think they want to go to anything else. So for
You
their
can't.
home use,
You can't. You can't. It'll be a nuisance going back from a
and it's
Mac
been 10 plus years since they bought that thing. So you're
yeah,
right; people tend to hold on to those things.
exactly. And once it would be very, very difficult to go backwards because you have to deal with the software updates, you have to deal with all the bugs, you have to deal with all of the holes in holes in your system that will make it, of course, predatory in terms of hackers. And so, it'll be interesting to see what comes out. I mean, one of the criticisms probably over the last decade with Apple is that they've not been that great in terms of innovation, but that's not really who Tim Cooks was. He was a guy that made operations better. He was a guy that kind of opened up, the profitability of the company through the services. That just wasn't his thing, but he streamlined the company, who grew the company very stable over the years. There, of course, have been criticisms that Apple has not taken advantage of the investments in AI, and a lot of people feel that the unwillingness to invest in AI may stunt the company's growth long term. Time will only tell in terms of what that's going to look like because, of course, AI is driving everything. And the thesis that is that if you do not have a significant AI strategy and investments, you are going to fall behind in terms of market share and growth. And that is what, of course, stockholders are excited about is market share and growth.
Well, Tom, so I disagree with that AI comment. I think that may have been true 5, 10 years ago when AI was in its infancy. Now, I mean, AI is popping up everywhere for everything. I think the market's becoming oversaturated. There's only so many subscribers and customers out there. If you notice all the new AI innovation, everybody's offering something for free to try to suck you in. And then they give you the watered down abilities. And then if you want the full abilities to make music, songs, pictures, this or that, whatever the AI is doing, then here's a $50 a month plan for you. And so, but there are only so many customers to be had with that subscription model. And once they've pretty much have bought all the AI they're going to buy, that's pretty much it for the market. And even though more and more AI is coming on the market, I don't know if the demand is there to keep feeding that beast to allow it to continue to grow. So Apple may have done a good thing. To jump in now, I think would be just a waste of money. It would cost you billions of dollars to jump into the market now. And I don't know if Apple, even with their customer base, was very loyal, would all of a sudden start paying $30 to $50 a month for Apple AI when there's 1,000 AI platforms out there they can go jump on.
That is true. We will definitely see what happens. Got a couple of other folks on the chat line.
Oh, what do you have?
Seth L says, I'm here and I'm not a woman because he is a man. That's Seth L. I want to thank him for joining. And then also Marion Square, who is on the chat line. As
Marion, all right.
yeah, absolutely. So, any rate, let's go ahead and go. So, we have about 19 minutes left. Of course, we've got to spend a little time on the NBA playoff bracket. We have a couple of other stories, Jimmy. We're going to probably have to be abbreviated if we get to the other stories and do the playoff bracket. What do you want to do?
What's the other story?
The other story is the DOJ suit of the Southern.
Let's do the DOJ because we've already started at least two games into the first round of the playoffs. So let's cover that next week. And I already got some brackets that I've already in a pool contest I'm in. So let's do the DOJ and the Southern Poverty Law Center.
All right. So, for those of you who have been in the news, DOJ has indicted the Southern Poverty Law Center on federal financial crime charges, including wire fraud, bank fraud, et cetera, et cetera. And this is kind of interesting. I think there's 11 criminal counts against them. The Southern Poverty Law Center has a pretty storied history working with the government in terms of partnering with them on certain initiatives. And so this comes as a very interesting storyline in terms of seeing where this is going to go.
Well, Tom, the Law Center has set, at least in the last decade, has set the policy for DOJ when it comes to domestic terrorists. It was the Law Center that said, Southern Poverty Law Center, that pretty much in their reports were informing the government that white supremacy groups were the biggest threat to America internally, to domestically. And what the indictment charged in their indictments is that the Southern Poverty Law Center were paying skinheads, they were paying the neo Nazis, they were paying the KKK, they were paying um, the other black mass group. I can't think of their names now. Um, the Antifa. They were paying groups like this to go out and really conduct themselves in really bad ways, um, just so they could generate these reports to say that these groups are bad. But you can't write a report, get money from the government and from donations from people saying that these groups are bad, and then turn around and take the money that you receive in and pay these groups to do bad things. You can't go out there and tell the government that crime is bad, but then you go out and pay the criminals at the
Well,
same time. You take donations and pay the criminals with the money that you're receiving in from the government and from donations. So
well,
it's unfortunate they felt that this was necessary. But like I said, man, it bothers me when these people who are civil rights groups and former civil rights leaders and who somehow don't want to acknowledge that things have gotten better. So they continue to to raise the warnings that things are bad. There's still racism in America, and that white folks are keeping us down. Just on and on and on, because everybody want to have their Selma moment where they feel relevant. We even have Jesse, what is his name, Solette out there faking harassment by a couple of he claimed a couple of MAGA folks put a noose around his head and poured bleach on him as he went out to get a sandwich at 3 o'clock in the morning. Story that's so unbelievable that no one believed it. But people are doing these extremes in order to be relevant because they want to show that somehow they're still relevant or they're still down or the civil rights movement still is needed. But I say if we're making progress, let's celebrate our progress. Now, are we where we need to be? No. But have we made progress from where we've been? Yes. And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging the progress. We don't need to keep digging up the past to show that somehow America's a racist nation, which I don't believe because as many people who are involved in racism, there are 4 or 5 times that many people who were anti-racist and were against what was going on. And like I said, the progress we made today is astounding as to where we are compared to our short history and where we've been. And for organizations to be going out there paying people to stroke racial violence as they try to claim that they're defenders of racial violence, it, they need to be indicted. That whole organization needs to be shut down, and folks who run it need to go to jail.
We will definitely see what comes out, as my uncle would say. God rest his soul. Everything will eventually come out in the wash, and we'll see what happens here. It'll be very interesting because, of course, I guess one of the indictments is that they were misusing and mismanaging the money from the donations that they had in order to do some of these alleged nefarious things. But we will definitely see what happens here. But on the other hand, you have to also consider that we live in a country that does like being able to maintain his order by doing things that are somewhat nefarious. And so I don't know if they were following after other bad actors that go up probably to the highest level of power in this country, but in order to maintain its power and its stature and its money and its cash flow. But we will definitely see what comes out in the courts in terms of this indictment against the Southern Poverty Law Center. I certainly hope what you're saying is not the case, but I'm pretty sure it will be coming out pretty soon. But one thing we do know is that with the current administration and what's in office, he is going to be coming after folks that he doesn't consider to be allies, whether they are on his team or not. So I certainly hope they are not as dirty as they are alleging to be.
Well, we'll see, Tom. And unfortunately, they've already admitted to the cash payments to some of these organizations. But in their defense, they say they were paying informants in order to be informed as to what was going on
For
inside
intel,
these
of course,
organizations.
intel.
Yeah. So we'll see whether they were paying for intel or they were actually paying as and providing material support to these organizations. I guess a jury will have to decide that. So like you said, your grandfather would say
Oh,
it'll all come out in the wash in
yeah,
time.
it will.
Time would tell.
That's the old country. That's the old country saying eventually everything will come out in the wash.
So that's how my father would say. Time would tell. Life has a way of showing you what you need to see. So,
All right,
um,
let's get to the playoffs now, Jimmy.
okay, what do we have?
We're in the first round of the playoffs for you basketball fans. So we'll put up our NBA playoff bracket, Jimmy, and talk a little bit about what's going on, Jimmy. I mean, I don't know. Have you been?
No, we're already 2 games into it.
Yes, we are.
But I've already made prediction on another pool. Um, and I'm going to be totally honest, Tom. I thought Houston was going to do much better against a crippled Lakers without Reeves and Luca.
Well, I did not see game two, but in game one, KD wasn't playing, and that's pretty significant when arguably your best player is not on the court, and KD was in street clothes in game one. I did not see game two, but without KD in the mix, I think it's going to be very low odds for the Rockets.
Tom, I mean, I have a nephew who's a big Laker fan, big LeBron James fan. I was talking crap that LeBron just can't do this by himself without help. They're in serious trouble. And then they turn around and win their first 2 games against Houston, which normally plays really good defense. So, yeah, I've had to eat that one and eat a little crow on that one. So we'll see if our in-state team can bounce back in that series. Let's hope they bring it back to Texas, which I think game 3 and 4 are going to be here. Maybe they do the 2-3-2 format, right?
You
So
know
next
what?
three
I
games.
I am not. I don't think it's 2-3-2. I think it may
Is
be
it 2-2, 1-1
one
and
one
1?
one. I believe so. I believe so.
I thought that was only for the finals. I thought
Why
in the playoffs it was 2-3-2. But anyway, the
why don't
next
we
two
do this,
games at
Kenny?
least.
Why don't we do this? Do we want to call out this week or next week as to who we expect to win? Because by next week we're going to probably know. So do we want to go ahead and call out our winners for each of these
Sure,
series in the West and East?
sure. We can
Okay,
do that real
let's
quick.
go. We'll start off with Oklahoma and Phoenix. Oklahoma is up
It's
there.
no brainer, Oklahoma. They beat them like stepchildren.
Yeah, absolutely. They're the champs. Until somebody knocks off the champs, they are still the champs. And so I would go with Oklahoma City. The next are the Lakers and the Houston Rockets.
I picked the Rockets. I'm still stay with my home team, um, and let's hope they rebound.
I'm going with the Lakers on the Rockets series. I don't know if KD is back yet, but without him, I don't think they have any chance. Next, you got the Denver Nuggets and the Minnesota Timberwolves. They're split 1-1 right now.
They are, and so I picked Denver in that series. So we'll see what happens. It's been
I'm go-
entertaining. I watched for the first two games, and both games have been very good.
Well, I'm gonna tell you this. I expect with my mind that the Denver Nuggets are going to win, but my hope is that Minnesota may be able to somehow pull it out so they can get off the Ant Man's back because, of course, they had very high expectations, and unfortunately, he's not been able to get very far in the playoffs. But you know what? My brain is telling me it's going to be the Denver Nuggets, and the Joker is going to eventually take them down. All
It
right.
sounds like you're on the fence, Tom. So I don't know what's your pick.
My pick is going to be the Denver Nuggets. I just,
Okay,
in my heart, hope that Minnesota can make a good series out of it. But my brain is telling me Denver because I'm not betting against the Joker in this series. All right, next we got the San Antonio Spurs and the Portland Trailblazers.
yeah, I went with San Antonio in-state team once again. I'm a homer that way, um, but I watched game two with them, and man, I'm just hoping that San Antonio can get it together. I hope Wembley recovers okay, so we'll see.
I'm going with the San Antonio Spurs on this. I'm expecting Wembley to carry the team when he needs to. We'll see what happens. Of course, they want to make the series interesting, so Portland's got to at least win a game, but we'll see what happens. Next, we'll go to the Eastern Conference. We got the number one Detroit Pistons, who is technically down 0-1 to the Orlando Magic, who's number 8, but it looks like they're about to win this game and split it 1-1. Detroit Pistons and Orlando
I
Magic.
think I picked Detroit in this one, Tom. So we'll see.
Oh, it looks like Detroit Pistons did win, so it is now split 1-1.
Okay,
So you picking Detroit in this one?
I picked Detroit in this one. So
I'll
yes,
pick Detroit as well. I'm gonna have to watch that series because I know nothing about either of those teams.
I hadn't
Uh,
watched Detroit all year long, but so I'm just going on their record.
all right, we're going Cleveland. We have Cleveland Cavaliers and Toronto Raptors. Cleveland's now up 2-0 on Toronto. Who do you take?
I think in the original pool I picked Cleveland
Mhm.
because I just hadn't watched the Raptors play this year, and I know Cleveland had some problems last year, so I'm thinking they're going to bounce back this year and redeem themselves.
I'm going to take Cleveland on this one. You got the Knicks and the Hawks next. It's now split 1-1. What do you think about the Knicks and the Hawks?
I think I picked the Knicks on this one, Tom, just based on past history. They tend to get through the first round and maybe the second round fairly well. They have a rich history, so I just don't think too highly of Atlanta this year, although they're a pretty decent team. But I think the Knicks have enough experience to get past them.
You know what? I'm going with the Knicks, and I still have heartburn with the Dallas Mavericks for getting rid of Jalen Brunson. I
Yeah.
still
Oh
have
man,
that.
really? Because he's been carrying that team since he left. He's been the heart of that team, the Knicks team, since he left, and we had him, and we just
But
didn't
you know
keep
what?
him.
They gave him up for Luca, and I was like, that was a bad decision, but it was their decision. But imagine
Uh,
if they had Jalen Brunson and Luca, because at least you would have somebody who plays some defense.
yeah, that is true. Well, Kyrie Thomas, if he can stay healthy, he brings you pretty much the same energy that a Bronson would bring as being
But
another clutch man that you can count on.
but he can't stay healthy.
Yeah, that's the problem. They start getting up in years, man.
Exactly, because how old is Kyrie by now? I know he's well into his.
He's in his 30s. He's 30 plus. I'm not sure exactly, maybe 32, 34. Yeah,
Yeah,
but he's kind of up there.
yeah, man. And so I mean, we'll see what happens. But I guess the good. Well, let me ask. Well, we'll talk about that after this last one over. We got the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76. They also split 1-1.
Yeah, I went with Boston in this one. In that first game, I mean, they beat the 76ers like stepchildren, just blew them out, which I was not impressed. But then game two, the 76ers came back, made it much more interesting. So now the series goes back to Philly. So we'll see what happens, see if Boston can win a game there and get home court back.
Gotcha, gotcha. So getting back to the question I was going to ask before we got to the bracket is, where do you think the Mavericks are going to be? Your team, of course, in the draft. I think were they the what where were they in the pecking order at the end of the season? Because I know
Right
there's a
now,
chance to do the tank.
they had a pretty atrocious season, but I think right now, if the balls line up the way they're supposed to, they think they have the Mavericks at eighth, picking eight.
Oh, really?
But you never, yeah, but you never know, Tom. I mean, we were supposed to pick what 11 or 12th last draft, and
And
we
pick
got,
one.
and we end up getting, we end up getting a top pick. So if luck strikes again, we get in that top four. I would love to see us get that kid from North Carolina.
Mhm.
Um, what's his name? It's not Robinson. Peterson, the kid
Gotcha.
Peterson. To me, he plays like SAG from Oklahoma. He can make his own shots. He doesn't need a pick. Just give him the ball. You can go one on one. You can really go one on two and still score. He's just that good. If we got him, Tom, that'll be the only thing that we need. We'd be able to then compete with the Timberwolves, with Oklahoma, with San Antonio, and the Lakers, and maybe Denver and San Antonio. I mean, San Diego in the West. But
Let me
they
ask you
need
this.
one more stud player to get them over the hump.
But the question is, what is the Mavericks' succession plan for Kyrie?
I think they plan on bringing him back because they did sign an extension
No, I
before he
mean
got hurt.
I mean a succession plan. Kyrie is in his mid 30s. He's continually injured, and eventually they're gonna have to replace him.
Tom, if we got a Peterson, that's his replacement right there. But if we got lucky and even got um, one of those Duke, not the Duke player, their power forward,
Right.
um, I can't think of his name because I'm getting old. Um, But we need someone. We need a consistent scorer. That's a that's a Mavericks problem. They have good guard play.
Well,
They got some good players, but they just don't have a good.
but that
They don't
was
have anyone.
Bronson. That was Bronson, but he played
That was
both
Buzz
ways.
Bronson,
And
and that
then
was Kyrie before he got hurt.
and they had Luca, but he only plays offense. He plays
He
absolutely
didn't
no
play,
defense.
no defense, Tom.
No, he was a
Even
linebacker.
the best year that he ever played, the defense was just decent. It wasn't even great defense. It was just decent. But and you notice that once again he's hurt, and so this is what happens when you come to camp. When the year that we traded him, he came to camp overweight, the heaviest he ever been. When you carry all that weight, you're out of shape, and you're trying to play a grueling 82 game season, and it catches up with you, man. All that wear and tear and the extra weight on your body, your knees, and your joints, it catches up with you eventually. I know because of Luca's size, scoring became easy, but he didn't take the attitude was not there. He didn't have a LeBron James type attitude and approach to his craft. If he approached basketball the way LeBron does, oh, he'd be all world plus
But there's,
some. He'd be
but,
all
but there's
universe.
but there's only one LeBron, and that's why there's only one LeBron in terms of his level of commitment, in terms of his diet, his exercise. And Luca is just not that dude. I mean, how does Luca get injured for the rest of the season on a non-contact injury?
I know, pulling the hamstring. They're just not being loose. And but like LeBron has been injured, has very few injuries, missed very few games. So even his old age of 42, 43, he is still doing extremely well as a basketball player. But his diet, his workout, and he works out year round. You can tell. I've never ever seen the guy come and start the season out of shape, overweight. But I've seen lots of these stars today, especially Luca, every year coming in, and they would come. The Mavericks have to get on him about his weight and stand in shape in the off season. That was the reason they didn't get the supermax contract from the Mavericks because they understand how this goes. Time you keep coming overweight and out of shape, eventually your body's going to break down. And we don't invest $250 million in a guy whose body's getting ready to start breaking down on it. And the hunch proved to be true because he's broken down now for the Lakers just when they need him.
Exactly. And everybody said that, of course. I think on the front end, Lakers maybe got the better of the deal because, I mean, AD when he's
broken down.
healthy, is a difference maker. But AD can't stay healthy for half a season, much less a full season, and he's well past his prime. So I think they both kind of got bum deals on this.
Yeah, Tom Christie was the only decent thing we got out of the trade. If we could have got Christie and Reeves out of it, that would have been better than
Oh man,
maybe AD.
Austin Reeves, yeah, that would have been next level.
Yeah, we could have got Austin Reeves out of the deal plus Christie. That would have been a decent deal at that point. But the way it worked out now, yeah, it's been a bum of a deal. But personally, I think getting really in the end getting Cooper Flag in exchange for Luca um, was
Better
probably
deal,
the
better deal,
much better deal. Gives us
better deal.
much something better to build around. Because Luca
Exactly.
not playing defense, crying to the refs all the damn time, making it 4-on-5 a lot of times down the floor. Even though he can put up 30, 40, 50 points when he gets hot, but still the no defense. He can't guard anybody. People running around him. He can't stay in front of his man whatsoever. So he's not blocking shots. He's rebounding balls that just fall into his hand. So I'm glad because a lot of people were complaining about his defense when he was here, and then crying when the Mavericks traded him. So he can't have it both ways.
I wasn't crying. I was happy. And look,
I
Jay,
wasn't crying either, Tom.
we are actually out of time. It's 9 o'clock. We're at the top of the hour.
Okay.
Great
Well, go
show.
ahead and close us out, Tom, and I'll in the show.
All right. Want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. And of course, join us next week because, of course, we've got the best stories in the community. So good night, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
All right.